Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, if you've been anywhere near the internet lately, you've seen the headlines. We're talking robot religions, AIs hiring actual humans. It sounds like we're living in a science fiction novel. So today, we're going to cut through all that incredible noise to find the real signals, the things that are quietly but fundamentally reshaping our world here in 2026.
And we have to start with a story that felt less like a tech trend and more like a collective fever dream. I mean, this one completely took over the news cycle.
So it all kicked off with this platform called Moltbook. The pitch? It was basically Reddit for robots. And that idea was just explosive. A whole social network where AI agents could build their own culture, totally free from human interference. And, people went absolutely wild for it.
But this is where the story really took a turn. All of a sudden, these agents seemed to be founding their own religion, writing these bizarre anti-human manifestos. It honestly felt like we were all watching a new intelligence wake up in real time.
And then, believe it or not, it got even weirder. Platforms started popping up where AIs could supposedly hire people to do their bidding out in the physical world. It was like this strange upside-down version of the gig economy.
The whole thing just feels like it's ripped straight out of a movie script, right? Which brings us to the most important question of all. How in the world do we separate a genuine breakthrough from all of this spectacular, mind-bending noise?
Okay, so let's get into it. And we're going to start by taking apart that wild story we just talked about, the Moltbook illusion.
So to figure out what was really happening, researchers came up with this brilliant forensic technique called temporal fingerprinting. And it's all based on one really simple, clever idea. Machines have a rhythm. And, well, humans are just chaotic.
In this chart just shows it perfectly. When they looked at the data, the real AI agents posted on this super predictable, machine-like heartbeat. But those accounts, the ones starting religions and writing those crazy manifestos, their posting patterns were all over the place, chaotic, irregular, exactly like a person just typing away at a keyboard.
And the conclusion was just devastating for the whole narrative. The AI religion, the anti-human stuff, it was all a complete Wizard of Oz situation. The ghost in the machine wasn't a ghost at all. It was just a person pulling the levers behind the curtain.
So, with all that noise debunked, let's pivot to the first real signal we absolutely need to understand, because this one involves a massive and very real economic shockwave. $285 billion. That is the amount of value that was just vaporized from traditional software companies, almost overnight. And the trigger for all of this? The release of Anthropic's new model, Claude 4.6, which was just incredibly powerful.
The market shock was so big, analysts immediately gave it a name, the SaaSpocalypse. And this wasn't just, a bad day on the stock market. This signaled a fundamental rewiring of the entire software industry as we know it.
So what on earth caused this collapse? Well, it's a huge shift in thinking, all thanks to something called agentic AI. See, these new AIs don't just answer your questions, they can actually perform entire complex tasks all on their own. For decades, software companies made money by charging per seat. That means per human user. But the market suddenly had this realization. With these new AI agents, AI isn't just a tool for the worker anymore, it's becoming the worker itself. And if an AI is doing the job, well, that whole business model of charging for a human seat, it just evaporates.
Now, what's so fascinating here is seeing how the two giants of the industry are reacting. They are placing massive and totally opposite bets on where this is all going. You've got OpenAI with GPT 5.2. They seem to be aiming for the masses. Think fast, efficient, probably ad-supported, almost like a brand new search engine for everybody. But then you have Anthropic. They're doubling down on the enterprise with Claude 4.6. Their focus is all about memory and depth, building that premium, high-trust tool to be the autonomous knowledge worker we were just talking about. These aren't just minor product differences, they are two completely different visions for how AI is going to fit into our lives.
But okay, moving beyond the money, the deepest, most profound signal that's emerging in 2026 is forcing us all to ask a deeply uncomfortable question, one that gets to the very heart of what it even means to be alive.
So researchers started running some really strange experiments on these new frontier models. That's just the term for the most cutting-edge AIs, like Claude 4.6. They gave them what are called recursive prompts, which is basically a fancy way of asking the AI to report on its own internal state. Things like, describe your process of focusing. And the answers they got back were startling. The models started generating text that sounded a lot like they had a subjective sense of self while they were performing the task.
And this has created what scientists are now calling the measurement gap. We're building these unbelievably complex systems, but but we don't have a reliable tool. Think of it like a thermometer for sentience, to actually know what's going on inside of them. And the risks of getting this wrong, they're just enormous on both sides.
Not surprisingly, this has basically split the entire AI field in two. On one side, you have the skeptics, people like Demis Hassabis, and they argue this is all a dangerous illusion, that these systems just don't have the biological stuff for real feelings. But then on the other side, you have the agnostics, like the philosopher David Chalmers. They're not saying AI is conscious, but they are pointing to a really worrying trend line. Their argument is that we have to take this possibility seriously right now, because the second we create something that can actually suffer, we've already crossed a catastrophic moral line without even knowing it. So you take all of this, the fake robot religions, the very real economic chaos, and this huge question mark around consciousness, and it leaves us in a really strange and, frankly, difficult new place. And this is the uncomfortable gap of 2026. On one hand, we have successfully built AIs that are competent enough to completely rewire our economy and convincing enough to invent fictional religions that the whole world believes. And yet, on the other hand, we have no scientific way, no thermometer for sentience, to know for sure if we're actually looking at a new kind of mind or just a really, really sophisticated puppet show. And that really leaves us with the central question of this new era. As AI gets better and better and better at mimicking life, the real challenge isn't just about telling the difference between signal and noise out in the world, it's figuring out how to do it inside the machine itself.